Everybody, this morning I am in a neighborhood on the north side of Indianapolis, and actually if you're in this neighborhood you'd probably think you were in Carmel, Indiana, but you're actually in Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're going to talk about just this particular area and how it can be a little bit confusing, and a couple other areas around Indianapolis too that can be confusing as far as the address goes, and when you're searching for homes under a particular address, how to maybe get away from some of that confusion and not get caught in it. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in a place like Indianapolis, Indiana, or Carmel, Indiana, or any of the other cities and towns surrounding Indianapolis, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. And we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about Carmel, Indiana, of course, Indianapolis, Indiana, Greenwood, Indiana, Avon, Plainfield, Greenfield, you name it, any of those cities and towns that surround Indianapolis. So if you have questions at all about any place in Indianapolis or any of the cities and towns surrounding, make sure you reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indianapolis Metro. All right, again, guys, I am in this weird little spot. I'm gonna get out here in the sun. Some cars driving by, but I'm in a neighborhood called Lexington Farms. Not that that is terribly significant. It's not like it's a famous neighborhood. It's a super nice neighborhood, that's for sure. And I've had clients actually buy in this neighborhood, and they've been quite happy with it. So the reason I'm here in this neighborhood, and it's not the only one, it's just that it's a spot that can actually be a little bit confusing. So generally speaking, when we're talking about borders of Indianapolis, you have to really pay attention to where they are. So a lot of people get confused about 465, I-465. And when you look at it on a map, it might look like those are the borders of Indianapolis. But boy, especially when you get on the south side and the west side, not true at all. The border of Indianapolis goes way out beyond 465. We're talking several miles out from 465. So you might think, well, I'm over in Avon, or I'm over in Brownsburg, or I'm over in Plainfield, or I'm in Greenfield. Actually, you're still in Indianapolis. So you have to pay attention just kind of to where those are. But on the north side, it seems to be a little more simple. Seems to be. So 96th Street is generally the border between Indianapolis and Carmel. And that's the street that I usually use whenever I'm talking about that southern border of Carmel and the northern border of Indianapolis. And 96th Street actually cuts inside of I-465 by just a little bit. And that's unusual, where it doesn't whenever you're looking at some of the other sides of the city of Indianapolis. So it's a little bit unusual in that particular piece. But what can be confusing is that Indianapolis actually does poke up to the north kind of far on the north side in a particular place, like this. In this particular neighborhood here, actually turn around and head back the other way. I think I've got some construction coming up there around the corner. Looks like it's putting on a roof. So once you get up into this particular area, and this particular area is called Home Place, and there's quite a history here, and it's been a controversial one, but Home Place was annexed by Carmel not all that long ago, not that many years ago. And it was controversial for people living here, people living around here in Carmel, but ultimately it was annexed by Carmel, and it still has an Indianapolis address. It still has an Indianapolis area code, or not area code, but postal code. So this spot ends up being a little bit strange. And what I mean by strange is that you can have an Indianapolis address, like all of these homes here, and the Monon Trail, actually it's an awesome location because the Monon Trail is right over there, just on the other side of this pond that's right behind me, and those houses. And the Monon Trail is certainly associated with Indianapolis and is associated with Carmel, so that's not unusual. It could be there. But all of these houses with an Indianapolis address and postal code, they're in Carmel Schools. So it's not the only place where this can actually happen. And actually, the Indianapolis address goes pretty far north here. It can go all the way up to 111th Street, and it's really, really weird when you go east of here, over to Westfield Boulevard, or west of here, when you get over to College Avenue. You get these Indianapolis addresses going north sometimes, and Carmel addresses going south. I mean, the rhyme and reason is a little bit tricky sometimes to figure out, and it's not the only place around Indianapolis where something like this happens too. It can happen over in Brownsburg, where you feel like, well, I'm in Brownsburg, but you actually have an Indianapolis address, and that's the pretty far eastern edge of Brownsburg and the western edge of Indianapolis. But people looking, let's say they want to live in Brownsburg or they want to live in Carmel, places like that. So since I'm in Indianapolis, Carmel, in that area right now. I'll just kind of use that as the example. But the way people go about searching is that I want to live in Carmel, and a lot of times what that really means is I want to be in Carmel Schools. It's not always that way, but of course, if they have a family, schools are a concern, and they want to make sure they're in Carmel Schools. Well, if you go in and search Carmel homes, even if I do this on our local MLS for clients, we'll discuss this sometimes, especially if we're talking about a specific price range that could match a neighborhood like this one here, or some of them in the vicinity, is that don't search only by the city of Carmel. That might get you into trouble. You may miss some homes. So usually when I put together a search for a client, I'll usually use Carmel Clay Schools as the search criteria, not just the city of Carmel, because all of these homes, if you just used the city of Carmel as your search criteria, you're gonna miss out on all of these because they have an Indianapolis address, but they're still Carmel Clay Schools. So you could have that happen. You could definitely have it happen over in the Brownsburg area as well. I want to live in Brownsburg. Well, you put in a Brownsburg address, boom, you can see everything, of course, in Brownsburg, but there may be some homes in Indianapolis that are in Brownsburg schools. So there's a few little tricky spots around the city where that can come up, and it's hard to catch unless you're searching that way, because you might have a situation where just across the street, it's a totally different city address, like across the street in the western edge or the eastern edge of home place, and even the northern edge of home place, where you might have, oh, it's a Carmel address, you're looking at a house across the street and it's an Indianapolis address. And there's some other goofy little areas too, where the cities might be fairly consistent, but then the school district isn't super consistent. The one that comes up quite often is on 146th Street, in that 146th Street corridor between Carmel and Westfield. So you could have a Carmel address on the northern side of 146th Street, but be in Westfield schools. So those are things that you want to make sure that you're paying close attention to. And a lot of times the best way to search for homes, if you're worried about school districts, and everybody should, I think, for at least a little bit, even if you have kids that are grown, they're out of school, it's great for resale value, of course, if you're concerned about that. If you're not that concerned about it, because all homes eventually do sell, it doesn't matter what school district they're in, but you can open yourself up to a bigger pool of buyers down the road when you're in a desirable school district, of course. So it's always a factor. It's just a matter of how big a factor it really is for you. But searching by school district will help to prevent getting into a little bit of trouble where you might miss some homes in your price range that could really be a pretty good fit. So if you have questions at all about the confusing nature of that and how you can avoid it a little bit, then be sure that you reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.